Hello, hello, and welcome everyone to TJ Speaks. I am your host, TJ. I am very grateful today to be here with you. Okay, people, we're going to get into this today. I have a wonderful show on tap. Today's title of the show is Diving into the World of this Migrant Crisis. Diving into the world of this migrant crisis. Um, the title of our today's show is Black Communities Forced to Finance the Immigrant American Dream. And today, the reason why I want to talk about this is because this has been sitting on my mind for a while. Um, I shall say, I believe that I'm a pretty um, intuitive person. Um, I'm I'm really sensitive. I feel, and that I can, and I tap into not only my feelings but the feelings of how what's happening today is related to our history. Okay. So let's go. Let's get into this. All right. So Black communities being forced to finance the American dream. Okay. Now, this is not. First of all, this migrant crisis is not a crisis. This is America. Let's all be real with ourselves. America is intentionally allowing these people to basically break into the country and force us to, as far as the Black community, to finance these people once again. Um, America is the most powerful country in the world. Okay, America has the biggest military, the strongest, the biggest economy in the world. Um, the people of America is very educated. So this migrant crisis is not an accident. This is unacceptable because America has some of the most talented people in the world, and you can't accept that with all of America's might, that people from a third world country who cannot read, can just simply outsmart the American legal system. So something's up. These people are being allowed to flood our nation, and specifically Black community. Okay, I'm gonna touch on that. Um, yeah, like I said, these people, this is unacceptable for a first world nation where you have these super intelligent people, Harvard, Stanford, all the top notch educated people, the President of the United States, the military generals, West Point generals, and they all act like in our Congress and our Senate, all pretending that, oops, all of these people just happen to flood into our country and there's nothing we can do about it. Baloney. Baloney. This is everything that's happened today is right along the lines of America's history. Okay, let's go back down, of course, to history lane. Let's take a trip down history lane. All right, what happened? America had slavery. America was founded by the original 13 colonies, and they had slaves, and these colonies grew into a massive, massive economic powerhouse due to the wealth built from the slaves' labor. From there, you had the colonists overthrow the King of England and take the money in the country for themselves and call themselves the United States of America. So, and during all of that time during slavery, what happened? The poor white immigrants were being financed by the newly formed government of America to come over to America to establish themselves, to get themselves a plantation, to start their business and start their wealth. But if you notice, the wealth is always beginning with the Black community. You see, recently in recent times, you had Governor Ron DeSantis wanting to revise the Black History curriculum in Florida. And the problem with Ron DeSantis' idea when he mentioned about slavery, right? He mentioned that slaves were somehow taught skills. Completely wrong. See, if you're going to talk about Black history, you better know Black history. And this is why Ron DeSantis is not a good choice for the Republican Party. Because Ron DeSantis is an idiot. He's not a stupid man, but he's an idiot. Um, the man never took the time to learn Black history. Okay, the a little well-known town called Jamestown, Dutch colony, one of the original colonies of America, failed. The people starved. The colonists that started here starved, and the solution, it was such a failure that I forget the individual's name. The solution was determined to be, let's get the Africans. Let's get the Africans to come over here as slaves. Let's get some slaves to help us survive. So if the white race or the white people of that time knew that they're in a country that's pretty much a wilderness. America was a wilderness. America was untouched land by the Native Americans, and the white people of yesterday knew, the Europeans knew, we need the smart people to come help us survive. We know who exactly has the skills to help us survive. You went across the ocean and you kidnapped, in many instances, right? You kidnapped people, the African people, the slaves, our ancestors, because you knew they were intelligent enough to survive in any condition. You knew they had the skills for agriculture, the skills for the architectural skills to build. You knew they had the strength and the tenacity. Okay? Otherwise, you wouldn't have wasted your time. If white Europeans had the skills when they originally arrived in America, there would be no need for slaves because they wouldn't need any help. It was the Europeans that sought help because they was unable to survive in America without a hell of a lot of assistance. All right? So the Africans that they brung over, they didn't have to teach these things. They knew these were leaders. They seen what they can do overseas in their countries, and the Moors of Europe. They knew that these people were the real deal because we're not the only race of people in this world. So why us? See, that's what Ron DeSantis can't explain. Why the Africans? Why the Moors? Why the ancestors of the descendants of slaves? What was so special about them? You could have kidnapped Chinese people. You could have kidnapped the Indian people. There's so many different ethnicities around this world you can kidnap. Why us? Because you knew what was up. You was in a new world, but the world was not new to the Africans. They have already traveled. The Moors have already traveled to America long before the Europeans arrived. So they knew exactly what they're doing. They knew what time it was. So we get to America. The European settlers could not survive. They had to kidnap the intelligent people that they knew that could make it. All right. So boom. And then further along, all the way up to the 1800s, you had the Irish and Italians arrive, and they also was placed on top of the slaves, and the slaves had to do the work, while the white people, the European people, was benefiting from someone else's labor. So this has always been a thing in America. As an immigrant, you are allowed to come over here. Um, Use other people's resources to establish yourselves. That's not exactly self-sufficient. So when people talk about the American story, it's not really truly being honest. Because if you were self-sufficient, you wouldn't need my help and my know-how and my resources to establish yourselves. You can get in there, jump in here, and do your thing. Okay? So the slaves were forced to finance the white immigrants, and now today We're forced to finance more white immigrants that speak Spanish. Okay, that's the only difference that's going on from yesterday and today. It's just the language of the white immigrants are different. Before, the white immigrants spoke English and German and Italian. And today, once again, it's like this framework. If you really want to pay attention, open your eyes. You see the same framework. Every immigrant group that comes here broke. They all come here broke, with not a dime in their pocket. That's pathetic. You've been living in another country your whole life. Why are you broke? Why are you coming here with no money? And it's the expectation of America based on the framework from slavery that a white immigrant can come to America and depend on the slaves, i.e., our ancestors. That's us today, the descendants of slaves, because they're dumping them in our communities. The white immigrants can depend on the slave to help them get on their feet. They give them this assistance. They need help. They need this. They need that. Why can't America immigrate people that already have things, that know how to read, that know how to write, that have job skills? What's up? Well, this is not a brand new country anymore. This is not the 1700s and the 1800s. Why is America continuing the slavery framework, bringing a people here, any people, to a country that has no resources, no education? Who are you expecting to take care of these people? Who? And of course, today, which mirrors the past, you put them in where the black people are, the slave descendants. And this is why it's very important for the descendants of slaves to have their own identity, to establish who they are, because America's doing it all over again. Now, remind you, America's the same country that has never paid reparation. This country has never paid reparations. Okay? So don't tell me that this country is caring and cares, considers the human flight. Because you never consider the flight of the slaves, the people who are people. Slaves were people. My grandparents were people. That's why I'm here today. They were people just like you. You never considered how they was going to make it. And America is showing everyone the difference in how they treat other people, the immigrants, and the descendants of slaves. The immigrants get consideration that the descendants of slaves never had. America has so many programs dating back from the early days of the 17th and the 18th century. Okay? The 1800s, correction. The early days of those times, all right, 1700s and the 1800s, America had immigrant programs. Let's help the immigrants can come over to America and get a loan from a bank. They never even had a job. These people never contributed to the economy, but the white immigrants of 1800s was able to get a loan from the bank. Where did the bank get its money? The slaves. And do any of these immigrants have a problem collecting the money from the labor of others? Because the standard in the world, because I traveled the world, is that you don't go to another country begging. That is the general standard in the world. Well, this only in America, this is okay. And when you listen to the children of the immigrants, the ones that came here broke, they all tell you the same. They actually tell you what happened. They talk about how their family was illiterate and broke, but somehow they made $1 million. And no one wants to take into account your family as an immigrant used someone else's money. They use a finance and a resource they did not produce themselves. They was given opportunities, okay, and ignored the fact that America is the land of slaves. And America was sitting on the slaves' unpaid labor. They didn't care about that. The immigrants didn't care about that. Because immigrants come to America to enjoy America's blood money. And America's more than happy to give it. Because this is the way of the world. And this world is unfortunately our reality. We're surrounded by this world of people. And people call us all kind of names. But we're surrounded by these heathens that believe it is their right to put their burdens onto another group of people. And these people that expect the black community, when they look at us, they expect us to pay for them. They expect to take our resources and use those resources for themselves. They don't see these are people that's working hard to build something out of nothing, literally. Because America, once, like I said, never gave. America stole our labor and the wealth from our labor, okay? And they never paid for that labor. So America attracts people that enjoy the concept of slavery. This is something the immigrants have to come to terms with. You know better. The immigrants today are no better than the slave owners in the past. You both have the concept that the black people are the ones that's supposed to finance your startup. That it's perfectly okay to, what's the word? To impose yourself on a community, a strange community. You feel entitled to it. You demand assistance from people that you never gave any assistance to. You never gave us any assistance. You never supported us when you was on your high. Why are we required to take care of you? That's the thing. Why are the black communities the target? Black people only hold 1% of the wealth of America. So why are the majority? I'm gonna get the information for my listeners. The information on what's the percentage of immigrants being dumped in our community, because I know it's very high. Most of the broke immigrants that come here, about 90% of them is dumped in the black community because it's expected by America that the black community divide their resources with these new people, because that's how everybody started in America. Everyone started using the black people, the black community, the slaves. So they tell everyone, come on, come on, let's enjoy the slaves. And this is part of the reasons why immigrants do not support reparations. Because every last immigrant benefited from slavery. Even today, this country is building by the obvious lack of respect for the established laws that this country has written about immigrants. Immigrants are supposed to come to America self-sufficient with their own funding and work and finance themselves. Okay, the ability to pay their own rent. We can see that today it's the same framework. Let them, the immigrants, whether they're European white, Hispanic white, or whomever, come to America, the land that has never paid reparations, that has never paid for the labor it received for over 240 years. Allow them to come to America, collect all of these wonderful immigrant programs that the immigrants did not finance themselves. They literally taking tax dollars out of the black community, forcing us to pay taxes. And then they take that money and give it out like a freebie handout. The very same nation that never showed the same compassion to the descendants of slaves and has never paid reparations. So American descendants of slaves have a lot to consider this upcoming political cycle. We have a lot to push up against, and we have a lot to demand. And it's time for all the Black Americans and descendants of slaves to push back and say, hell no. And to remind this America that you're sitting on blood money. You're not rich because Europeans worked. We have the pictures. We have the proof. It was not the European labor that funded America. This entire country, all the way up to this day, still has the framework of slavery. You're allowing people to break the law, which goes right along with the white privilege. Okay, the white privilege establishment of this country. That the white immigrants, whether they're Hispanic or English, doesn't matter what language they speak. They're white, and the migrants that they're bringing today are in the image of white people. They're allowed to disavow the law and impose themselves onto the Black community. Okay, white people, America knows that Blacks only have 1% of the economy. So 99% of the economy goes to other races of this country. Why aren't the other races having to support the migrants? And then why isn't this country that's so caring about the migrants has ever paid reparation? Why hasn't that happened? If this country cared so much, America would pay reparation. Excuse me. America would pay reparation. So it goes back to my original statement. Um, the Black communities are being forced to finance the American dream, which is right along the concept of slavery and what the original white immigrants that arrived here was able to enjoy, the fruit of someone else's labor. It goes right along with that framework. So nothing has changed in America. America is still the same country it always was. The country that sits on blood money. Money that has a debt has never been repaid. And the idea that someone else is required to finance your dream. So for me, in 2023, the American dream have a different meaning for me. The American dream is really not turning out to be a nice thing. It's not turning out to be, it's actually turning into my nightmare. For many of the Black community, the American dream is our nightmare. Okay? I want everyone to sit on that for a second. For the descendants of slaves, okay? The American dream is our nightmare. Because we are the only ones that have to bear the brunt of these people's dream. We're the only ones. These people are not even required to have any skills or to come with some type of resources. They just put them in the Black community, give them the resources of the Black people. And it's sad because this country has literally locked us out of the economy past slavery. Not only during slavery, but from 1868 to 1968, America had to pass Fair Housing Initiative, okay, the Fair Housing Act, because they would not allow the black citizens to access the capital of America. But they have allowed all the immigrants to buy, like, for example, the mortgages. The mortgages, Black people, all the way up until 1970, were not able to secure a mortgage like every other tax-paying American. We are allowed to open bank accounts. The banks are allowed to use our money, but we weren't allowed to get finances for a home. Okay, and therefore, when we tried to, we had to buy homes out of cash. We had to buy homes before 1970. to rent to own. Black homeowners had to sell their property for significantly less money because the blacks were totally locked out of the capital, the access to the capital. Therefore, black people, the descendants of slaves, specifically the descendants of slaves, were locked out of the American economy all the way up until 1970. And then you want to tell me about some stupid affirmative action? This country is horrific. This country is cruel. And with the poorest community in this nation, this country imposed 10 million. Joe Biden has put 10 million illegal immigrants on top of our community, a community of only 40 million people. And all the white people and all the Asian people and the rest of the descendants of immigrants are just perfectly fine with it. Everybody's just tooting along, talking about America, America, that's so great. This place is a nightmare. On that note, I'm going to close this broadcast. Let me see here. And I wanted to make sure my people, listen, this is a challenging time, but you know what? We're up for this challenge. They're dealing with the most educated group of black Americans, descendants of slaves they have ever encountered. And we will not sit idle by and allow you to use us and our resources for those pathetic, I'm sorry to say it, pathetic immigrants that come here uneducated and without any money. That's not our problem. And I'm not feeling sympathetic because this country has never felt sympathetic to me. This country has never paid the reparations, paid for the unpaid labor that this country has received. They're all sitting on blood money. And them nasty immigrants they're bringing in is more than willing to enjoy the blood money that America has sit on. So how I see them is, please, give me a break. I have no sympathy for people that want to impose themselves on another group of people that's already been oppressed. And these people have no problem putting a knee on our necks. They got no problem with it. So I have a problem. And I will not go away quietly, and we will not surrender, and we will fight like hell. We will get rid of Joe Biden and all the people that think it's okay to us. Oppression will no longer be tolerated in America. So I'll leave you with that. Keep the hope, stay awoke, and don't go broke, people. Have a blessed day.